Hello, brilliant beauties. I am excited to bring to you today Heidi Schalk. And we are just going to riff like two girlfriends who are rocking it in the business world. And we want to share our high vibrational energy with you. We want to be real and true to the journey and be able to connect deeply and authentically as entrepreneurs and embrace the cognitive dissonance that exists. You know me, I'm your executive energy coach, loving to keep you in that high vibrational space and also aligning with the behavioral transformations that you need to succeed at ultra high levels in your business. Heidi, would you go ahead and introduce to our listeners, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey?
Sure. Thank you first, Dr. J, for having me. I'm honored to be here and I'm excited for our conversation. I love your energy and I'm just excited to be a part of it and in it. So thank you for this time. So my name is Heidi Schalk. As Dr. J shared with you, I am a business strategy and visibility coach, and I support female entrepreneurs in building online and scaling online businesses. I am also the host of the Be She podcast, which stands for Be Seen, Be Heard, Be Empowered. And I have been featured on Fox, NBC, all the things. I'm not going to go into that. But it's that's been part of my journey and the fear that I'm going to share with you. So thank you for this platform, because when it comes to, and I only shared the media piece of it because that was a huge fear of mine, is stepping into the light and shining more light on me and my business. But when I first started my business about 6 years ago now, I was moving through a divorce. And prior to the divorce, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had two small children. I was heavily involved in there. I took them to school. I brought them home, took them to their activities. I was the room moms for both my children at their school. I was the co-chair of the auction committee 2 years in a row. So I was heavily involved in their daily activities, and I would rinse and repeat that every day. So when it came to now, I get to figure out how I'm going to create an income and take care of the house and the two children and the five animals. I was like, what am I going to do? So I knew I needed to find a job, but there was a deep burning why for me that I quickly tapped into that got me into entrepreneurship. So, and that was, I wanted to be home with my kids. I knew that was a burning desire for me. I came from a divorced household. I would go home and be home alone with my sister, and I wanted it different for my kids. This is what they grew up used to knowing, and they were going to already be navigating enough changes. I wanted that to stay consistent as much as I could. So I was online on Facebook and I saw this coach, and she's like, you can do what you know. And I'm like, I know how to be a stay-at-home mom.
I know the jungle is real. I can pack a lunch. I can get homework done. I can manage the minutes.
You do all of that. But that's probably what not people are not going to pay me for that. So I went back into my toolbox and I'm like, okay, well, I was in the health and wellness space. I was a personal trainer prior to being married. I had competed, and I'd done all that. So I'm like, oh, I could do that. I know that. I know how to be healthy, how I can help people get healthy. And so, but when I dove into that in the online space, it had completely changed. It had really niched down. There was now gut health and keto and vegan, and there were so many different off parts of that I was like, this is not exciting for me. I do not want to relearn this. And I realized quickly that was not my passion. But also another thing I learned quickly is that, building a business isn't easy when it comes to, dipping your toe into the entrepreneurial world. So I did work two jobs as I was building my business, but I was trying to navigate, like, how am I going to do this? And I quickly realized, like, wait a minute, I have to go live. I have to get on video. I have to put content out and get vulnerable and share my story. First of all, nobody's going to want to hear my story. Second of all, like, I can't do that. I had huge fear of being seen. I'm an extreme introvert, which people are shocked to hear, but I am. I'm an introvert. And it was extremely shy growing up. I didn't want my photo taken. I was always behind the scenes. I wanted everybody to be in front of me. I grew up hearing children were seen and not heard, which, if you're not heard, you're really not seen. So that kind of, like, I never understood that. Still don't understand that. But then so I was like, wait a minute, I can't do this. And I was in a coaching program online that I shared with you. And there was a woman in there who was crushing it. She was their golden child, the epitome of the testimonial that you want to have. She went from homeless, living in her car, to crushing it when she joined this program. And her and I became friends. And, I learned quickly that you get to surround yourself with people that see you higher and more than you see yourself. And I was blessed to have her in my corner, because she reached out to me in the DM and we would talk there. And she was like, I have a challenge for you, Heidi. Will you accept it? And I'm like, "Ah, sure." We became friends. So I'm like, I trusted her. I'm like, sure, no problem. I'll take it. She goes, awesome. I want you to go live in the Facebook group right now. And your topic is my breakdown to my breakthrough, because she knew I was going to have a full on breakdown. And I immediately, Dr. J, started sweating, started shaking. My chest got tight. My throat started closing. I could hardly speak. And I'm like, and the emotions started kicking in. And I'm like, I can't do that. And she's like, I'm here for you. I will be there there with you. But I'm on the other side of the pond. It's after midnight now. So I get to go to bed soon. So I'm in Florida. She was in England. So she's like, if it's now or never. So I went on, I hit the button. Again, I was shaking, I was sweating, my chest was tightening, my throat was closing. I was crying, but when I tell you crying, I wasn't crying, I was bawling. My face was swelling, my eyes were swelling. The emotions were so intense that a migraine started forming.
Oh,
So luckily I got through it. A few people hopped on. I think there were a total of 2 or 3 people on there, including her. And I got through it. I hung up. She got back in the DM. She goes, that was amazing. Congratulations. You did a great job. I'm like, no, I didn't. And she said, I have another challenge for you. Will you accept it? And I'm like, it can't be any worse than that. Cause I feel like I'm going to die. And she said, and I said, sure, I'll take it. And she said, great. I want you to go live over the next 5 days. And I said, good night. And I shut down my computer and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up and I was so scared of what I was going to see. I'm like, people are going to judge me. Nobody else has this fear. I'm the only one. Like, everybody else is crushing it. I go in there and I couldn't believe all the comments of support, of thanks, of saying, thank you so much, Heidi, for showing up so vulnerably. Thank you for sharing your story and your fear with us. I've had a fear of going live. I've been playing small and holding myself back. I thought I was the only one with this fear.
yeah.
Other people were like, you know what? I've been playing small by letting myself be held back by this specific fear. You've inspired me now today to take a step forward and take action through that. One of the coaches inside of the coaching programs, she did an impromptu training around my live stream and around the power of vulnerability, around the power of stepping through your fear and doing it anyway. So that's my journey. It has not been pretty. And I tell everybody, if you have a fear of being seen, you'll never be as bad as I was. Never. It's like mine was like you need the tissues that I didn't have, type of cry. So I hope that story helps someone, because I hope I went through all of that to at least help one person.
I know that you did. I know that you did. My story is very similar in the sense that I feel like I was suffering in a silo of silence, right? On
Mm,
camera, because I had been so experienced in teaching and presenting, it looked like it was easy, right? And so
mhm,
I do still get the armpit sweat and the heart racing heart and all of that, but I've learned how to manage those things in the past. And what would happen to me is it was really more rooted in the belief of being worthy, the belief that you can achieve high levels. And I think especially you mentioned going through a divorce. And I think sometimes when we go through these, I call them our custom agitations, right? They're this thing that really agitates and shakes up our operating system and gets us to see things differently. That when we go through that, sometimes it's like our belief in ourselves takes a big hit. Did you ever
mhm.
experience anything like that where you just felt like, oh my gosh, I don't really believe in my ability to do this? Or was it just the going live part that was scary, but you really did believe in yourself?
No, I didn't believe in myself, and that's part of it. And I didn't believe anybody else cared enough to want to hear from me or hear my journey. And I think that, like you said, I think it's a worthiness thing. And when things shake up in your world, that can take a very, a hit on our self-esteem.
Mhm.
Like you experience your world one way and you get in your comfort zone. Right. And then
Yeah.
that comfort zone box gets shaken up. And now we're like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable for me. Fear starts showing up again. Am I good enough? Imposter syndrome. Like especially when it comes to building a business. And I think no matter when, like, it wasn't just going live at that time, it was. But now I have a podcast and I love having guests on. And I know that you have been, you shared that you like to do, you do a lot of your solos, and I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
I have that's a new thing for me. So it's out of my comfort zone. So that fear of, do people really want to hear from me on my podcast, or do they really want to hear from guests instead? So every time I do a solo, it gets that fear shows up for me again. And, I had an experience last year where I did the speaking competition and I had a week until the competition. The decision it was the following week. So if I was going to decide to do it, I needed to decide it. And that week was filled. So there was no time for me to prepare until the night before around 11:30. And this was an in-person event. And I was debating about whether to do it. And all of a sudden, I remember clear as day, this was like last September or so. I was in my kitchen on the phone with my business partner and my best friend. And I was like, I don't know if I should do this. She's like, I'll go with you. And immediately I started shaking, started sweating, my chest got tight, and my throat started closing. And I said to her, I go, I get to do this. So now from that experience, I learned to embrace and recognize when that fear shows up for me. Cause now I'm like, thank you. That made my decision so much easier, whether I should do it or not. It was like an absolutely, yes, I get to do this because that's my next cut. This is what's going to help me get to my next level.
Do you have one of the things that I notice for myself is our energetic vibration? So you're talking a lot about the ways that the space where we manifest that's the highest vibrational energy is gratitude. I call them my gals. I get my gals out before I start doing my work, and it's gratitude, authenticity, and love.
Oh,
And
I
you
love it.
mentioned like having this friend, right? That's like our friendship and authentic relationships have to be at the core for us to do this well at ultra high levels. Love that your love for your children, your love for that vision for them to experience something different has been a big part of your work.
Mm.
How do you carry a vision, and how do you feel that vision affects the day to day, right? So many people give up, or so many people don't have the tenacious spirit to actually take a business across the finish line, right? And I know that a lot of people who listen may have this voice of doubt in their mind, wondering, can I do this? So take us back to that moment when you were working the job, building this on the side, and carrying a vision. And how did you use that vision to maybe shape your behaviors and how you use your time and manage your minutes so that you could achieve this level of success?
That's a great question. And I think that happens over time. So for me, the first thing that I connected to is my why of staying
Mhm.
home with my kids. And that's where my vision was tied to. I can envision me staying home with my kids, being there when I got the phone call from school. If one of them wasn't feeling well, like I could just go pick them up. It's extremely important that you have a vision. And a vision for me, that was like, it was a big vision, but for many people, that could be a really small vision. Maybe a bigger vision for them, for someone else listening, is like creating that dream home or that dream vacation, or, creating the $1 million. At me at that moment, that was my vision. And every day I just connected to that. And I think it's important that we write out what our vision is so you can read it, you can connect with it. So when those days get hard, like I share, like entrepreneurship, doing the journey, whatever that journey is for you, isn't always cupcakes and rainbows. There's going to be days of lightning and thunder where we're navigating that journey, and there's going to be bumps, there's going to be turns and twists. And when we can reconnect to our vision, that's what's going to keep us, excited and aligned. And if something shows up, before I say yes or no to it, I connect with my vision. Is it
Mm.
aligned with my vision? If it is, then yes. If it isn't, then it's a no. And that's how I stay on the path of moving forward and keep from making that decision like, you know what, this isn't working for me, or I'm not good enough for this, or who am I to be doing this, and quit. I stay connected to my vision. Um, I love that you mentioned gratitude in your gals. It's like so beautiful. And I'm going to keep that in my mind. And when I think of you, every morning when I go through this too,
Get your
I,
gals, get your team.
Get your gals, God, I love this because I always have a saying, we're better together. I think there's
Yes,
too many people in the entrepreneurial space who want to compete. And I'm like, no, as female entrepreneurs, there's plenty to go around. Like we should
yes.
be supporting each other and raising each other up, not that little like act like when growing up, maybe there was like, girl, what do they call that? I forget. I can't even think of it because I don't do it. Drama, right? Girl drama. There should be no drama. Let's lift each other up and raise each other up. So when you mention gratitude, I do something that I didn't do it right from the beginning. Like you asked me about the 2 jobs and this is something I learned as I was like evolving and growing, but I have a gratitude journal. But the
Mhm.
way I do it is I write out my current gratitude. It always starts with my kids. It's always number one. The rest of them can, change direction, my health, my home, all that. But I write out what I'm grateful for. And I don't put myself on a limit. I don't say at least 3 or at least 5. I write until I stop. And so there's no pressure on me for that. And it could change every day, but then I follow it through. Like it's just, I just write until I can't think of anything else, until nothing else shows up. And then I go into future gratitude. What is it that I want in my vision? And I write it as that I'm grateful for it now. So I'm grateful for the clients. If you're wanting clients to come to you, grateful for the money in my bank account. I'm grateful for the continuous flow of money into my bank account. I'm grateful for the new roof on my home. That happened in real life. Like I was grateful for the roof I didn't have. I knew I needed a roof. Didn't know how it was gonna happen. And literally within 2 months, the person showed up and the money showed up. And I was able to make it happen. So just practicing that future gratitude as if it's already happening, you'll be shocked and amazed at the magic that you create.
I think that's part of being able to live in the state of miracles, right? Like just being open and receptive to God and the angels that are guarding us and all of the things happening for us and because of us, right?
Yes, I love that.
How would you describe? I'm very interested in our behavioral choices, right? Every single day, we're just a few behaviors away from destroying our businesses, right? And a lot of women, especially high achievers, live in this space of cognitive dissonance where we have the best of ourselves and then we have those days where we show up as like the worst of ourselves and we're like, who was that person? And then we start beating ourselves up for having a down day, like as if we have to be on our A game all the time. Like a lot
Yeah.
of my clients, we sit and we try to find the best day ever, like optimizing our days and managing the minutes. And then when a day doesn't go like that, or even a season doesn't go like that,
Mm.
we start to really take some hits in our self-esteem. How do you keep yourself? What behavioral choices do you feel have made you successful? And how do you keep yourself enacting those on a daily basis?
Well, I think, mentorship was a big choice that was scary, financially and just, did I choose the right one? Or even belief in myself. Am I going to do the work? Right. Cause I
Yeah.
can make the decision to do it, but am I confident in myself that I'm going to show up? And one thing that a mentor of mine shared, and I love this, is like hold commitment comes from the commit, no, confidence comes from the commitments that we keep to ourselves. So
Ooh.
we may keep some commitments to each other, to other people, but how often are we breaking those commitments to ourselves? So like when people are scared to go live, when I have clients that I work with, they're scared to show up, whether it's on a podcast or do something out of their comfort zone. I'm like, take baby steps, start small, and then hold on to that commitment. Like how many times have we said, I'm going to start exercising tomorrow or on Monday, and we never
Yes.
do it? And every time we break that promise to ourselves, our trust in ourselves is going down. Our subconscious is saying, Heidi's not going to do that. Especially if I say I'm going to do a big thing. Oh, she's definitely not going to do that because she couldn't even drink an extra glass of water like she told herself she was going to do yesterday. Right. So really just holding every time we follow through with the commitment we make to ourselves, we put another coin in the confidence jar. And that as those coins increase, our confidence goes up. And it starts with just the small commitments. Community was another one. Like finding, like hi, my name is Heidi. I am a recovering lone wolfer. And so finding, community, asking for help. That's not, I used to see it as a sign of weakness. Like, I don't need anybody to help me. I've got to prove I can do this on my own. I don't need anybody to think I'm weak, right? That masculine energy driving forward with it, instead of saying, you know what, I do need help. I do need support, and giving that gift to someone else to support me, because they may be, you never know. And I tell this to my audience. I'm like, if you're stuck and you have no idea what action to take next, then step away and reach out to someone and see how you can help them. And
Mm.
then that's going, by you serving and giving to them, that's going to bring you clarity on what to do next, because you're no longer focused on the stuckness. You're focused on the serving and giving. So by me not asking for help, I was being selfish, and I wasn't allowing someone to, to give them that gift of helping and supporting me. Because as humans, we want to do that. We want to support others. So a mentorship, I try to be as productive as possible. That doesn't always work. But another word that has helped me, because I used to look at work-life balance, I'm like always hearing that work-life balance. And as a single mom, I was always failing. I'm like, I don't have work-life balance. And then it turned into guilt. As women, we can carry a lot of guilt. And I'm like, okay, well, now every day I'm failing because I don't have that work-life balance. Work needed more time today, or my kids needed more time today. Or you know what? I need to practice more self-care today. I need to take care of me today. So there wasn't that balance. And I realized I'm throwing that out the window. Like I don't believe in that. So I now entered the word of grace, work-life grace, and
Mhm.
giving myself grace on those days or those weeks where, you know what, I'm not, like you shared, we're not crushing it all the time. I'm like, okay, once I start getting that guilt show up, I'm like, we're releasing the guilt and we're bringing in grace and that remembrance of everything is happening for me. I may not know why right now, but I know that when I look back in the future, I'm gonna be like, aha, I needed that in my life in the moment because it got me to where I am now.
I love that. So much of this is very tied to business. Anytime, whether I was launching downtown Denver's first elementary school or building out cloud liaison and security and privacy teams or a learning and performance department, every time I always started with mission, vision, and operating principles, right? Like, what is your mission? Like, for me, I love helping women reveal their brilliance and discover their truest potential. That is like, I'm on a mission to build brilliance in the world, to help people see that there's so much brilliance in them. My vision is to be able to travel anywhere in the world with my daughter as she competes at high levels, jumping Grand Prix and all the stuff around horses that I don't even know and understand is real yet. Like, I grew up riding waves, not horses. So I'm just learning as I go. And then operating principles are like those characteristics that make our lives extraordinary, the ways in which it's some business operations, right? But in life. And I love the thing that you said is, even though it's scary financially, find your mentor. Confidence comes from the commitments we keep to ourselves. I used to tell myself every day, I make and keep my commitments to myself. I make and keep my commitments to myself. If I said I was going to work out, it used to be the first thing cut was my self-care. And I started to recognize trust starts with ourselves and is the number one business imperative. So I want everyone listening to really be thoughtful about trust. You can Google 5 waves of trust and see in a business setting how that enacts, but it starts with self-trust, which moves to relationship trust, which moves to being trusted in society and in the market in which you play as a business owner. So we've really got to look at keeping those commitments. And then beautiful, like shifting into this space of community that we don't need to be the lone wolves, right? That it's actually creates a lot of suffering and a lot of stuckness, that often it's when we're in community that we start to see, oh my gosh, and we're shining, right? It's like, I love the person I see in myself when I'm sitting here with you. And so we're elevating each other. That's that rising tide, raising all ships that those of you who are in the women's business launcher, you know that we talk about. A rising tide raises all ships. We show up as the best of ourselves for each other and we lift each other up. And then when you said work-life grace, oh, that melts my heart. I always say, know when to be fierce and when to be gentle with yourself, right? And as long as you're fierce most days, you'll be fine, right? Like sometimes I think if I'm not fierce every single day, like I'm the duck, slowly, gracefully gliding across the water, but underneath it all, I'm like, oh my gosh, don't stop, and it's like, it's okay to stop paddling. It's okay to just relax for a little bit. So I
Absolutely.
absolutely love that. What advice would you give based on if you were to speak to someone who is kind of thinking about entering the entrepreneur space and they don't know what they might do? Like they have no clue how to get started. What advice would you give to that woman?
I would say what lights you up, what gets you excited? Because I think a lot and makes you and will make you money, obviously. Like I was a stay-at-home mom, really not going to make me money, but what lights you up, what gets you excited about like, how you can help people or what your next steps are, and then take action. Action brings clarity. Even if it's not the right action step, you're going to learn quickly. Like, okay, that wasn't necessarily the right step, but I learned this. Now I get to try this. And every action step you take is going to get you closer to those answers. And that can be really scary to take action because we're like, I think we all try to want to be perfect and in everything we do. And that's another thing I'll say, like if the sooner that you can release perfectionism in when you're wanting to start a business, the sooner you're going to soar. Because one, people don't like perfect. I mean, I remember when I was, stay-at-home mom, everything had to be perfect, right? House had to be clean. The birthday parties, I had to have the best ones. I got made the cakes, made the, I made the tulle skirts around the tables. Like, I went to bed at 4 or 6, party was at 9, type of thing. And it's just exhausting. And one, people can't relate to you if you're showing up perfect all the time. And have fun with it. Perfect's boring. Perfect's not fun. And you want to be relatable and authentic. If you're a white t-shirt kind of jeans kind of girl, then show up that way. That's your brand. Create your brand around you. Don't try to be someone you're not. Because I think when a lot of us start in the entrepreneurial space, we'll look at those people in our space who are crushing it and doing it. And we're like, oh, we have to emulate them. Well, if that's not you, then no, you're not going to attract anyone because people are going to see through that. And the biggest thing I could say is that I did that I shouldn't have done, that I have like all these steps that I did, don't do what I did, is don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. They're on their own journey. They started where you started at one point, and you get to enjoy your journey. And when we're comparing ourselves to other people where they are, we're not enjoying their journey. And I want you to look back on this and enjoy the road. That'll keep you going longer too, and more likely to succeed.
It's such a tricky dichotomy to live in, right? Because you do have to look at industry to compare, right? Like, who are the people who are thriving? What are they doing, right? That's kind of a competitive market analysis, which would be a very strategic masculine energy task for us to do. Yet when we start, it's when comparison creeps in, right? That's where we got to practice the awareness and say, this analysis helps us know what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yet then we have to almost pivot quickly into our own authenticity and what is it that really calls to us. How did you discover? Can you walk us through how you discovered, went from analyzing and what's possible into discovering your audience, who you serve, what specifically you were going to do? Can you walk us through that journey so that someone might hear their ideas and their journey in yours?
Absolutely. And I'm going to share it wasn't easy because, I think when we start our business, and I hear this from not only clients, but also audience, that, if they're beginners, or even when they're, growing, but especially when they're beginners, well, I can help people with so many different things. I can organize, like being a stay-at-home mom, I can help organize. I could do, I could talk into, health and wellness. Like the more we talk into, the more confused our audience gets, and confused audience doesn't buy. Right. So really like deciding who it is you want to help and how you want to help them. Maybe that person is you. How did you navigate something on your own? And yes, I did research. I looked at what other people were doing, but I was looking at the people of who I wanted to be. And unfortunately, I wasn't there yet. So I can't step into and emulate those people because I wasn't there yet. And it was showing up very inauthentically to my audience. So when I actually started going, okay, what is my branding? Who am I? Well, I live in South Florida. I love being on the water. So I'm surrounded by beach. That is my branding. I'm not a suit kind of girl. I love pretty things. I love bling and sparkle. I love to be dressed up, but I'm not wearing black long dresses everywhere I go. So that my brand, I wanted comfortable, I wanted relatable, I wanted people to, I want to travel first class. So, you'll see champagne in my branding, but you'll also see me on the beach, having fun. So really just finding out who you are and getting in tune with that, because your brand is an extension of you. You don't get to fit into your brand. And your brand is also going to evolve. You're going to evolve. At some point, I may be, leaning into, the private jet or whatever, but I'm not there yet. So why am I going to fake it? Right. Because it's not me. And that may never, and that mean that, do I want to fly first class everywhere? Absolutely. Like you, I want to travel. I want to have that freedom to travel. But I also need to be true with who I am. I love to be on the beach, casual. I like to go to, a local restaurant on the water and listen to live music. Right. So that's what I'm going to share. So really just finding what lights you up, and not compare, like I said, not comparing yourself to other people. You can look at where you want to be, the people who are where you want to be, but go back and look at where they started. I guarantee you the brand that they're showing now and who they are now is not what they were showing when they first started.
One of the things that I want everyone to hear is start with who, not what.
Mhm.
Often we start with what we're going to do. What can I sell? What can I, you know, bring into the market? When really the biggest thing that I noticed is I was focused on all these what's. What could the program be? What would the curriculum look like? What kind of coaching did I want to do? What did I put out as a lead magnet to generate emails? Like all these things that I realized were all activities, and that's what I was doing. But I forgot to look at who I am,
Mhm.
and who should be the very first thing that we do, right? Who am I? And standing in that strength, standing in our uniqueness, standing in our brilliance, that resonates so deeply with me because I think when we look at who we are and how that's that authenticity. And
Mhm.
authenticity is actually the highest vibrational state for us to manifest our dreams in terms
Yeah.
of words and frequencies of sound. And so that's so beautiful. When I learned, and it takes some peeling back, right? Because in certain environments, like for you, it was let me put on the facade of the picture perfect mom every single day. For me, it
Mhm.
was let me put on the facade of the picture perfect educator or political leader or corporate employee. And we put on these masks and we behave in ways that are responsive to the environment, right? How you'd behave at the baseball game would be different than how you'd behave at the symphony. And so we, as humans, it's natural to be conditioned by our environments. B.F. Skinner calls it operant conditioning, like our environment is always conditioning us. And when we step into entrepreneurship, one of the biggest shifts we have to make is that we now get to decide who we're going to be. And that who identity work to me lights me up. It's one of the things I love working with clients on the most because you're peeling back all these layers of actually, yeah, I don't like being that person. I don't like to be so researched and calculated all the time. It turns out
Mhm.
I'd really rather be real and raw with you and say, tell me about that moment when you were crying, right? Like, oh my gosh, I didn't think I was going to make it either. In fact, almost every day I wake up wondering, am I going to be able to do this, that big dream, that big vision? And that's why I ask so much about the behavioral choices because we condition ourselves into excellence. And I just thank you so much for sharing. Are there any parting words of wisdom that you want to share or a story you feel like I really want to share this too? Do you feel called for anything you want to close us up with?
Yes, and I love this conversation so much, and thank you for your time and for this combo because I know it's going to help so many people. I want to talk into something that you just shared. Did I just lose it? I think I just lost it.
It'll
Uh,
come back.
it'll come back. Oh yes, that was what it is. If you when you have an idea, like you shared, like you were so worried about the what, not the who, right? Like what's my offer going to be? What's my program going to look like? Let me create all of this stuff. And
Yes.
then when that's done, I will go out there and make it happen. When really what comes first is you have the idea. So if you're just getting started and you have, or if you're pivoting and you have this idea and you're called to move in that direction, the idea is first. The second thing, it's not your offer. It's not your, even your messaging, which you do need your messaging, but it's you getting attention. You need to be visible. You need to be sharing with people who you are. And that starts with your story. That starts with your journey, or that starts with a story that you've helped someone move through that process too. So sharing your story is what's going to best be able to let you know where to go next, because that's how you're going to be drawing in your audience, the people that resonate with you, your ideal clients. So the visibility aspect of it is so important. And then once you have your people coming to you, then you can be doing your market research, getting your messaging clear, moving into being seen on like podcasts like Dr. J's. Like these are great ways for you to get clear on your messaging, for you to get in front of audiences that you would never get in front of before, and be able to get clear on who are you attracting? Who's coming into your space when you're sharing you and your message and your story? And then from there, once they tell you what they need and what that gap is, then you can create that offer. Because then when you do put that offer out there, you're going to have people wanting it because they've told you what they want. I wanted to share something that happened to me yesterday. I was talking with someone I was doing another interview, and I, when we're putting our messaging out, when we're sharing our story, we can get in the mode like, I'm so tired of telling this same thing over and over and over again. Nobody wants to hear this anymore. They're burnt out of hearing it. And we were about to start the interview, and he was like, I'm so excited for this conversation. I've binged your podcast, I've binged your social media, and I love your story. And I know that your story is going to help the people in my space. And I know it's going to even help me today because I'm starting my business and building my business. So just when you think, I want to share that with you, when you just think that you're tired of your offer or you're tired of your story, somebody needs that. And that means if you're tired of it, that means you're out there and you're sharing it and you're doing your thing and you're showing up. And I'm proud of you for that. So when you get to that point, that's not the type to like take the foot off the gas pedal. That's to keep pushing through because there's more people waiting for you.
And I think that leads it into just being divinely led, right? That when we create stillness for ourselves, I notice this like, and I tell people anytime that if you're allowing some stillness for yourself, one of the things in the aftermath of battling an aggressive form of cancer I learned is to bathe in sound. Cancer cells can't survive certain HZ frequencies. So there's this Rife machine, and I was like, oh, I've got to get that. Then you can program it and you can cure the flu with it. You can cure cancer with it. You can do all these cool things. And it was really expensive. So I couldn't afford it and thought, but I'm not going to give up. I'm that tenacious spirit who's like, I will figure it out.
Right.
And I have found all these different HZ frequencies and I started bathing in sound. And when I did that, I noticed I had this deep sense of peace, this deep
Mhm.
connection to my vision and to my why. And it was in those moments when someone would come to mind. And it was in the, I'm getting my tingle that comes from God,
I'm
right?
getting it too.
It's so good. Oh! And in those moments when like I'm connected to the reason we have this calling, that we're crazy enough to do this instead of taking
Right.
the much easier route of being an employee,
Right.
because we're being divinely led by God and bringing our soul's sacred purpose into the workplace. And I think we don't talk about that very often, right? That often for those who are succeeding at high levels in entrepreneurship, they're divinely led. And it's less about getting the who and what just picture perfect. And it's more about that authenticity of saying, if it's on your mind to share that story today, that's for divine reason. There's someone who
Right.
needs to hear it. There's someone who needed us to be divinely connected, to get
Mhm.
real as rock star women, one who's coming from the background of stay-at-home mom, who, can I just say, I've always been envious. I bring my daughter, I'm like the crushing it in corporate, running around like a chicken with my head come off. I come into your home and I'll never forget going into my first play date with a stay-at-home mom. It was October. They had their little fall bucket list whiteboard. It was super cute. And she even made these little, they were like tangerines with a little celery. They were all peeled for the kids, which when you're a working mom, you just hand out those. You're like, peel it yourself, you'll be fine, right? They're all peeled. They have these little tiny cut celeries as a stem. Everything was picture perfect. And in that moment, I thought, man, I'm really losing at the game of motherhood here. Like, and so I think it's so beautiful that we both have that different background. And yet,
Mhm.
anyone, literally, I want everyone hearing this, anyone can enter the entrepreneurship space, no matter what, right? All you really need is to be listening to that divinely led voice inside and to be knowing that deep inner knowing that only God can provide, that you are enough. And this vision and message has to get out into the world because that's how we serve. And I
Mhm.
loved how you talked about going from that stuck place and shifting into service, that when we're in service to others, when we're showing, sadly, it took cancer to rock my world and
Mm.
say, honey, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to receive help. And wow, people actually love giving help. And so
Mhm.
maybe all that we have to do in our business is show up as that version of ourselves that is the loving, the kind-hearted, the nurturing, the best beautiful woman that you are, not the tough side of you that went through all those hard things, but the version of you that is who you uniquely are and where you started this journey called life.
So beautiful.
It is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Heidi. This was so much fun just to share space with another rock star woman, to be that rising tide that lifts all ships. I would love to pray for our businesses as we close out, if that's okay with you.
Perfect. Absolutely.
Being divinely led. I don't always
Yes.
do this, but occasionally when the tingles are coming, I've told God, okay, I'll listen. I don't know
Yes.
who needs this, but we'll go for it. Dear Heavenly Father, angels, guardians, and protectors, we are so grateful for the space that we get to share when we step into the best, highest versions of ourselves, the highest version of ourselves that is united with you, Lord, and guided so divinely in your footsteps. And God, I place the words of peace over Heidi and every woman who has the honor and privilege of hearing this episode this week, that we can recognize that our best is enough and that we are in community and we can be community for each other when we choose to see the best in each other. And that starts with seeing the best in ourselves and to make and keep those commitments to ourselves, to show up as the best of ourselves, to trust in our ability to figure things out. That's the number one trait of the world's highest performers. All we have to do is trust in our ability to figure things out. And often that is by being divinely led. And God, I just thank you for this time and treasure spent here with Heidi. And I want to pour blessings and golden rays of love and light energy over every listener who comes across this podcast. We know that these connections are with divine purpose. And we thank you so very much for lifting us and allowing us to be strong and courageous, to be that love and light that builds brilliance in this world. In your holy name, amen.
Amen.
So wow. Beautiful. Let me end that.
Thank you, Dr. J.
You are so welcome.